Hello and welcome to the second week of Build-a-Kek on the Zach Connor channel, the series where we invite players from the community to take on a 5-day challenge building decks based on themes that we've plucked out from a random number generator and a very long list of random themes. Players then build the decks and compete in matches in order to show off just how spicy their builds can be. So this week's theme is Diversify. And it goes like this, so at least one card of each of the following types has to be included, and there's a very long list, so it's like normal monsters, effect monsters, ritual monsters, that kind of thing. You can see the full list on the screen at the moment. This selection of cards does include things like the spell types, your trap types, and also it affects your extra deck, so you have to run at least one of every single type of extra deck monster as well. So that's the theme. And let's get on to the games. Alright, so for this game we're going to see Wombat taking on Luxren. I believe we've seen them both in the series before. So we have, I think it's a 50 card deck for Wombat here. Basically just an essentially pendulum hand, getting off the Darkworm and the Cerberus in the very typical way, just giving him access to an Electromite. So we'll skip through this bit because this is the kind of thing that you're used to seeing from more competitive channels, I imagine. So in comes Vela, filling up the requirement of a tuner to negate that Electromite there. And then we have a Mike's coming down, which means that there's going to be an additional summon, additional normal summon of the Wisdom Eye, second Electromite, and then Rescue Hamster into the extra deck here. And then we can get rid of the first Electromite to get back that Rescue Hamster and use the normal summon to get double Wisdom Eye out, so that's pretty strong. Third Electromite already, pushing through that extra deck very quickly here. Getting back the Rescue Hamster again because you can put it in the scale to get back the Wisdom Eyes. And then suddenly you have double Wisdom Eye access, which is huge. Little mistake here, there should be 2 Wisdom Eyes in the scales. But obviously both players know that there are 2 Wisdom Eyes in the hand, so they can just both be played. And then we can proceed through it a little bit more correctly. So then Oath Dragon and Harmonizing becoming the new scales. So 2 and 8, I believe. Adding back the Wisdom Eye, making the Zephyr Metatron for the triple zone access. And that's going to bring out the double Wisdom Eye again, and the Jackal here. And then those two can make a rank 4, so going for the Dweller. Pretty strong board, you have a Floodgate and potentially some negates coming in as well. So in the standby, we're going to see Wombat getting off the Dweller, and then his opponent's going to start with a Ritual. So this is Malacoda and the Burning Abyss side of things that you never really saw before. So Good and Evil of the Burning Abyss. Discarding some interesting targets here, we have Armor Breaker and Libic. Libic obviously not doing anything. Armor Breaker, we'll see if it comes up. I think it's just a level 3 that fills the requirement of being a Union. And then down comes BLS, so going to be able to push some serious damage on the board here. I believe the players forgot to actually apply the damage at this point, but they will fix it a little bit later in the game, so no need to worry about that. Down comes the double level 7s, and going for the Absolute into Vortex via an Underclock Taker there. And this will be able to deal some damage and push through the board. So Vortex returns the Ritual, the Malacoda, and then they're going to miscalculate the damage here. So this BLS should be on 500 attack, so this should do 2,000 over it, and then another 1,000 at 3,000. So a bit unfortunate that I didn't notice that. But then we see the other effect of the Good and Evil in the Burning Abyss being implemented. So getting Scarm through to Graph and a set there. And then Scarm effect adding the Tour Guide, I believe. Yep, that gets added. Vortex doesn't get negated. And we see that Wombat drew into a Buster Blader, so yeah, you can pendulum some of this. I was going to put a load of damage on board. It's not quite enough for game given the miscalculation, which means that he's on 6,500 at the moment. But in fact, otherwise, that would have been it. That would have been Wombat taking the win here. So we'll see, given the slightly unorthodox situation we're in, if Luxren can make a comeback here. So Graph Twisters, that's going to be pretty huge. Then Farfa and Tour Guide, with Farfa's Chainlink 2, so the Vortex negates the Farfa, but the Tour Guide still goes off, brings up Seer. And that is going to make a Dante. So Dante can obviously just crash into Vortex here. I don't think anything decent was milled. Yeah, nothing particularly good there. So just punching into Vortex here, and then he can recycle the Dante with the Seer, and add back the Scarm, and then make the Beatrice. So we'll get the end-phase search, add the Alec, and I believe they're just going to remember the damage at this point. Yeah, there we go. And Draco Face-Off comes down, so I haven't seen this since I believe Draco Powers were a thing. So this is going to be, so his normal monster is the Vector Pendulum, the Draco Overlord, and we've got the Luster Pendulum, the True Draco Slayer in here as well. And he's going to be bringing out Vector, and putting Luster into the extra deck. And then setting scales of 5 and 7. I don't, you can bring out the Oath off this, and the Jackal as well actually, so yeah, he's got a couple of targets in there that he can bring out. But there's Twisters here, which is going to deal with both of those, ditching the Malacoda. So no cards in hand for Wombat, and Luxren is going to be taking 2 cards in hand with the Beatrice still on field. And one of those cards is a BLS, so this is suddenly like a ton of damage that he's been able to assemble. We've got the Beatrice and the BLS. BLS being able to attack twice is pretty huge. So you can punch over both of those. This is the battle of the classics, Buster Blader versus BLS. Unfortunately, BLS is just a little bit bigger, and that's going to take it right off the field. So Wombat not looking in a good position. It's really hard to make a comeback with a single card in a Pendulum deck. So Living Fossil just going to keep him alive for 1 turn, but that is going to be it. Luxren is going to win this match all down to a miscalculation of life points. But yeah, that's game 1. Alright, so looking at Wombat's list from the last game, you can see obviously players are required to make fairly diverse decks. So we had basically a general Pendulum build with a bunch of stuff added on top. We got the Buster Blader, which turned out to be pretty awesome in that match. The ABC pieces here fill out the sort of union requirements. Then you've got the Necros of Clauseless with the Cycle, because the Cycle can summon Clauseless pretty much immediately. You just need a level 3 in Clauseless for that. Pretty cool as well, and the Return of Draco Face-Off, that kind of stuff. Nice to see. So then also the Buster Blader Trap and the Fusion Monster in the extra deck. Be interesting to see if he kept playing this on in the future, if that would ever actually come up, but definitely worth just throwing it in there, you know, why not have fun with the deck. And he's got a Zark in the extra as well for the extra spice. So yeah, really cool looking list, definitely fulfilling the Diversify requirements here. So here is Luxren's list. As you can tell, it's obviously a BA-centered list. We have the triple BLS in here, similar to what Thomas Rose was doing, playing the light hand traps in here as well, which is pretty cool. Obviously, though, it's not quite the kind of list that we saw taking UK Nats. We have Malacoda instead of Saravis as the Ritual Monster. Obviously, he had to play the Union Monster, so here's an Armor Breaker in here, and the general Ritual Engine with Good and Evil, as we saw, can do some interesting things as well. As for the side deck, this is where a lot of the sort of requirements have been lumped in. Didn't want to play the continuous traps, that kind of thing, in the main deck, and the like Archfiend Eccentric and Hella, that kind of stuff, just chucked into the side deck. And the extra deck, mostly fairly standard. Yeah, I don't think there's anything hugely unusual about this extra deck. Alright, so for the second game we have Lewis versus Hardcore War. Looks like we got some ABC stuff in here. This is actually a fairly standard hand, I guess, for ABC, except we don't usually see the Foolish Goods. And Scramble doesn't tend to get played in the more meta versions of the deck. So on the other side we're seeing Duality for 3. Let's see what he takes here. He goes for Pacifist. Ooh. And then accidentally taking the Demise there, puts back the Demise and the Megalo Smasher. So there's another Pacifist deck appearing in the series. On the other side we see Forge Bearer Goods, Ascending Machine Angel Ritual, which I believe, yeah, if a light monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, so you can protect the ABC pieces. So pretty interesting tech there with the Ritual spell. It does trigger the Field spell, which brings out the token. So on this side we see Evenly Match come down, and he can't banish the token face down, so everything else on Hardcore War's field is going to have to go. and the token will have to stay there. So moving into main phase 2, C into Clara and Rushka, which brings out the B then, and then those two can make Cerberus, discarding Scramble in order to pop the token, and adding the A off that B that was sent from the field to grave. Cabazor's here, normal summon coming in bigger than Cerberus by sneaky 100, but nothing else on that side. So we see Engage from Lewis, and Hornet drones there, which is going to bring out the Kagari to add back the Engage, get another play, and go for another drones. And plus the draw there because he has enough spells in grave, so unfortunately drawing into Driver is never really great. We see these three go into a Unicorn, shuffling away at Cabazor's because it's just too much of a threat to have that monster on the field. And then out comes Buster, so punching for 5-2 here, pretty strong. Got this dead Gamma in hand though, no way to use it at the moment. On the other side, Duality, what is it, Battle, Judgment, and Sea Dragoons of Draconia. And yeah, that's going to be it. Hardcore War admitting defeat at this point. So clearly the targets for Duality just not strong enough for him to be able to deal with a Unicorn and a Buster. So here we have Hardcore Wars list, second week in a row that we're seeing Pacifist being a primary engine within the key games that we're bringing out. So then filling up a bunch of the other requirements with things like Rescue Rabbit, Relinquished in here, which I believe is one of his more preferred cards. And then a bunch of random stuff like the Buster Blaster and Cryomancer of the Ice Barrier as the tuner, which is pretty interesting. And then just sort of stun aspects with the Demise, the Duality, obviously being able to interrupt your opponent with the Spiral Battle from hand is pretty huge. Heatwave is actually pretty cool in here as well, and then the extra deck just sort of fills up. I guess like you're never really going to summon much of this, so it's just sort of things that could potentially come out. I guess you can summon out the rank 4s, like Lagias, the Evolzars, that kind of thing, and the Link monsters should come out, I guess, every now and again as well. So here we have Lewis's deck from the last game. This is a bit of a more unusual approach. So he's gone with the ABC core here, and then just sort of teched in all of the individual cards that he believes are the best options of the available ones. So we've got things like the Eccentric filling up the requirement for a Pendulum, Pendulum Effect Monster, then Food Court's Cannon for the normal effect monster, normal Pendulum Monster, sorry. Then the Gamma package fills up your sort of your normal with your tuners, which is pretty cool, and Sarabas is just like the last ritual monster requirement. Then interestingly, we've got Frontline Base in here, which is kind of cool because obviously this is a union based deck and you are required to play a continuous spell. So yeah, otherwise fairly standard actually, very similar to a lot of the competitive ABC lists that we've seen. Okay, so the final game we're going to be seeing Dunko Seka versus Mini Dai. You may know Dunko, or Duncan from Farfa's channel up in Glasgow, and hopefully we'll see something pretty interesting here. So on Duncan's side we have Odd Eyes, Gravity Dragon, we've got a Sea Crush Wyvern, some Odd Eyes stuff here, plus Mythical Beast Engine, so I guess like a kind of Pendulum Union deck. So we'll just see what comes out of this. So get things rolling. We're actually seeing Mini Dai starting with a Pacifist, so second time in the series that this is coming out, and a Future Fusion, but nothing else there for him really. Cerberus goes into a Jackal King, gives the other side a token and a search for Spiral Battle, which is just a pop 1 interrupt basically. So going for the Hanger, and then adding the B, so we should have access to Buster in here. So out comes Cerberus, and then C, equipping the A. Those two can go into the Underclock, and then C can trigger to summon the B. And yep, that's Buster with Underclock. So that's pretty nice to be able to have that kind of disrupt. Moves into the battle phase in order to sort of dodge around Vela. And we see Spiral Battle come out, targeting the Buster, so we can't tag out on this turn, unfortunately. So that Buster is going to go, but it is going to chain and banish the Future Fusion by discarding the Gravity Dragon, so no Gravity Dragon on the field just yet, unfortunately. Then moving into the end phase, using the Odd Eyes to add the Wisdom Eye there. So opposing side, a lot of resources available in the hand, potentially. This token is on 2k attack, I believe. And now that it's equipped with Spiral Grip, that is going to be summoning out the Spiral Dragon. And then this immediately equips to the Spiral Dragon as well, so that's some extra damage. That's why he's talking about that extra 1k kind of thing there. Then passing turn, we see Wisdom Eye and Black Fang in the scales. Wisdom turning into Oath in order to add back Wisdom. And then just Pendulum summoning 3, so here we have a Jackal, Wisdom Eye, and a second Wisdom Eye. So that's going to open up Electromite access, and then you can get things going again. So we get the Dark Worm into the extra deck, and then pops the Black Fang to add back the Dark Worm. And then he can summon the Dark Worm to add the Scale. This is the Purple Poison was the drawer for the Electromite there, I believe. And then those 4 can go into Borreload, which can take the Spiral, and then that can attack over the token. So that's going to do some pretty serious damage there. And then we see a pre-preparation of Rites, so another set of Ritual Monsters coming down. What is it that Mini Dai has in the deck? So we see a Shinobird's Calling, and a Shino Baroness Peacock, which I believe spins some cards to the hand, or no, that shuffles cards into the deck. So Shinobird's Calling comes down, and then he's going to be discarding the Baroness, which is the one he just added, but he's going to be summoning out the Baron, which returns up to 3 monsters your opponent controls to the hand, so these 2 are going to be going to the hand. It doesn't target, so Borreloid back into the extra deck, and the Spiral back into Mini Dai's hand, and then his board is just way too big for Duncan to be able to deal with, so that is going to be the end of that game. Alright, so here is Duncan's 60 card list. Again, you can see it's kind of like a pendulum baseline with a bunch of stuff added on top. ABC pieces coming in again, and we have some odd ice cards here because they sort of fulfill that requirement for both the Ritual Monster and the normal Pendulum Monster, plus the Effect Pendulum Monsters in here too. And they obviously have the extra deck access, with a bunch of them just filling up all of the different extra deck types too. Then just prioritizing some of the best options for the remaining cards, like Axe of Fools being one of the better equipped spells to just sort of run, and Judgment in there being obviously one of the best counter traps in the game, and yeah, filling out the extra deck in order to set up a stronger board and fulfill all the requirements. Plus we've got things like Sphere Mode in the side, pretty useful if your opponent is doing the same kind of strategy, because this is one of the harder decks to beat in this kind of format. Then here is Mini Dai's list. So we have the Pacifist engine in here, enabling for a lot of quick play pops, and then there's a whole bunch of random stuff in here. So yeah, Pot of the Forbidden, we've got the Chaos Max Dragon in here, and then Card of Demise, that kind of thing. So a really odd mashup of things, but it's interesting because he actually went 2-1 with this, and you saw in the game that we showed, he did actually win with this weird contraption, but definitely showing off a very diverse 60 card list here. So you've seen all 3 games now and the decks that were involved. Be sure to head down to the comments section and let us know which of the games you preferred, whether that's based on the actions that you actually saw take place in the game, or whether it's based on the deck build itself. Maybe you think that one of them is particularly interesting and the kind of thing that you'd like to try out in the future. Thanks very much to everyone who took part in this series. Again, it's great to have your support on board with this theme, and hopefully in this series we're providing you with something fun to do in your spare time over the summer. So if you want to take part in the series, feel free to head down to the description and click on the link that will take you to the Facebook group, where we can add you in and get you set up with this series, and you can potentially take part in the coming weeks. Stay tuned for a little bit longer to see a teaser for the upcoming theme, and yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.